Larry, look who we have in the box seats today. Tyler Campbell, who is maybe the most famous of the Campbell family right now. And I'm not exaggerating there.
Wow.
You can't go wrong with the Campbells, though.
Hey, man, that's high cotton. I'm going to tell you, listen, Mike, Dave, listen, for all the way up until about second grade, I thought we were famous for Campbell soup. So when you say that, I'm thinking above Earl Campbell. I'm thinking Campbell soup. I mean, that's national worldwide.
Well, you are national worldwide right now.
Wait a minute. Are you serious? You really thought Campbell's? That's really. Is that true, or you're embellishing?
No. So here's the deal. So think of your kindergarten, first grade self. Okay, Bannockburn Elementary is where I was. Mm-hmm. Back in those days, we had thermos. So in your thermos, my mom put all the different soups, SpaghettiOs, all right, chicken and stars, chicken and alphabet. So when I opened up our pantry, we're stocked, locked, and loaded with Campbell's soup products. Hello. So in the mind of a kindergartner, in the mind of a first grade young cat, because remember, Earl Campbell doesn't talk sports in our home. He has a big mural of Willie Nelson, which is his prized possession in our home. That thing that means more to him. Earl Campbell's that guy who gets on stage with George Strait. All right. And so for me, I'm thinking, boom, we're famous for Campbell soup. Because that is what we have in our home. We don't have NFL MVP trophies. We don't have Heisman trophies. We don't have any of that stuff. And Dad don't talk about it. Dad talks about country music. So Campbell soup, that's what we do. And man, he killed my world in 1991 when he told me we make hot links.
That is great.
What? Nobody cares about sausage.
Lane, Dad. You need to stay in the soup lane, baby. Don't.
Yeah. And then over time, when sleepovers started happening, that's when I figured out the football piece of it.
I'm glad you overcame that early trouble.
That's trauma. It was a traumatic experience. We sell sausage. Come on, man.
And look how far you've come.
Oh,
great story.
That's great.
Oh, wow.
That's one of the best stories we've had. That's really fun. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Let a world come crashing down in the life of a 6-year-old, man. It came crashing.
That's great. Tyler, I love your family. You know that. I've known y'all forever and ever and ever. I'm close to your father. But was there ever a time when it was tough on you being Earl Campbell's son?
I think it was tough on me in like growing up in EISD. I think football is king, in that era. This is outside of the Campbell family. You got to think, 96, Drew Brees bringing home the state championship in 1994. Ryan Nunez and those guys brought Westlake to where they lost to John Tyler, where my family from East Texas. And so there was an expectation from the outside world of who I was supposed to be. My brother was an amazing athlete, the better athlete out of the two and of us two, Christian, but there was never pressure from mom and dad. Mm-hmm. So in the mind of a young kid growing up, I made up this world of what I was supposed to be, meaning I put that level of pressure and expectation on myself. Mm-hmm. And the worst part about it, we talked about the streets. We talked about Jordan and Justin. We talked, Kalen Shear, Brad Shear's son. We grew up. All those guys took off athletically faster than I did. So even they were living up to a family pedigree. Mm-hmm. For me, sports was just a struggle early on in my life. So it was tough, but not from them. Be very clear. It was because I set a bar and I kept missing that bar for myself. And I saw the success from other teammates and other friends that they were having. And for me, it was that depressive slump of just, where the heck do I fit? Because it's not working out for me the same way it seems to be working out for everybody else. Yeah. And those were tough times in my life for that.
And when did that click? When did that change over?
So
on your oats athletically.
Yeah, because I was a year behind everybody. So I was young for my grade, right? I was a year. My mom bussed me over to Bannockburn Elementary to start me in school earlier because EISD wouldn't take a 4-year-old in kindergarten. So they would over by Bowie. So then she switched me back to EISD when I was in elementary school, but I was younger than everybody else. So I developed slower. It really, and then I played football for the first time in 7th grade, and it was horrible, right? It was just a horrible experience. When I got to be a freshman, I would say my 8th grade year going into freshman, because all of our running backs got hurt my 8th grade year. So I moved from fullback to running back, and we played at Georgetown High School, which was big deal. Varsity Blues, you're playing at the same stadium, you're yelling. So we played at a middle school, and that was my first time actually being a full-time tailback. And it actually clicked. And then in 9th grade, freshman year at Westlake, all of our running backs got hurt. We played the Hayes Rebels in my first game starting at running back. I had a kickoff return for a touchdown. And then I had red right, 36F, reverse left. And I took the play and took it like 80-something yards. And the next day I met with Ron Schrader on a Friday morning, and he said, would you ever be interested in playing high school football? And so varsity football next year at Westlake High School. So not only for me did it start to click in one game, it started to click in the eyes of everybody else too. Yeah. So I think other people saw what I didn't see, because in my mind, I was still the struggling athlete in my school or in my grade trying to catch up. But for everybody else, they saw what I couldn't see. And it just took off from there after freshman year.
That's great.
Yeah. Wow. Took off from there, man.
And you and your brother both had such great high school careers at Westlake, and you took it further into college.
Yeah. I mean, Chris was like my hero. Yeah. I think a lot of people, my brother hated football. We just had a rule that when you got to high school, whatever sports you started, you couldn't quit. Right. So he hated football, loved track. My brother was second in the state sixth in the, what was he, Mike? Sixth in the state in the 200 meters as a sophomore. Right. And so he had gone on to do Junior Olympics. He and Houston always had this conversation, because Houston Street was like, he was playing baseball in the summertime. My brother was doing track, and they both would come into 2-a-days. They'd be tired as heck because they've been doing this other sport the whole summer. And so my brother was getting football scholarships from a D1 school, UCLA, all these other schools for football and track. So to me, he was like the dual sport guy, and he and Houston kind of had that conversation because they could do two sports really, really well. My brother was just like, man, I can't wait to be done with football. And Lou Holtz tried his best when my brother got to South Carolina to try to talk him into playing football. That's how my brother knew Charlie Strong before he got here, because everybody was trying to talk him into playing football at South Carolina. My brother's like, not having it. So for me, it like, I don't know, like he was the man. Right. And that was just special for me to see his success, and then wanting to, like, that's when it started to competitive. Like, he got here, man, he didn't have to have college paid for. Like, that's a possibility. Yeah. If you do this sports really, really good, you can pay back your family by not having them to pay for your education. And that to me was different than a lot of my peers in EISD who were going to great schools, who were going to Harvard, who were going to Yale. But man, I could get a scholarship. That's different than what you have. I could get my school paid for. At 17, 16 years old, I can get my school paid for. That's what I was really hungering after at that point.
Yeah.
Now, maybe not at the level of your brother, but did you ran track also at Westlake, didn't you? Did you run?
They forced us to. They forced me to.
I was about to say, if you weren't playing baseball, most football programs in this state, you're in track. Yeah. You weren't a track man? You weren't.
So no, because I was never a fast person. I wasn't even a quick person. It was more of a heart person. So Pop didn't have speed, but he had power, right? My brother had speed, not power. I came from a standpoint of what I got from my dad the most was a heart. And when you worked, I could outwork you. But that took me getting to high school to figure out I have to put in extra hours, because I have athletic ability, but it wasn't off the charts like it was for Dad and my brother. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, you knew. My dad said he signed his first autograph when he was in 6th grade. My brother, first time touching a football, he scored a 90-yard touchdown. His first time on the track, he won all of his races, and it just clicked. For Tyler, it wasn't that way. But when Tyler figured out that if I work that extra mile, I can come out and I can surprise people. And that process of athletics is kind of what I enjoyed. being the ugly duckling, but you aren't seeing what the ugly duckling is doing when nobody else is looking. Like, you're not seeing the ugly duckling running on going over to the east side, running up the hill on East Anderson on the other side of the ACC building, right? You're not seeing me work out with the summer track team. And so that process of athleticism is actually what I fell in love with, and it's what made me enjoy and love, like, Muhammad Ali, the Michael Jordans of the world, because of the work that they would put in when people thought it was fine for them to rest on their laurels, or when people saw them talking trash, they actually could back it up. And when I looked at my dad, when he changed my life, I said, Dad, how are you so consistent? Like, it's one thing to be at the stardom, but it's how you're consistent in the NFL year in and year out. And y'all know this because it's good to be your first year as a rookie, but everybody knows what you can do after that. Mm-hmm. So how do you defeat the tape? And he said, Tyler, I literally felt like every time I got on the field, no matter who was over there, I felt like I was the best person on the field. I felt like I was better than Steel Curtain defense. And so for me, it showed me there's a lot of stuff you can do for yourself as a competitor when you believe in you. Mm-hmm. And that's something that was missing in my life for a long period of time, is I just didn't know how to believe in myself. But when I found out that I could outwork other people, that was the thing that kept me going, and it would actually pay dividends later on in my life, big time. So it was the work ethic for me. That's the process that I fell in love with.
Mike, that's such a great point. And me being an overachiever too, and going above and beyond what people thought when I was younger I could do, getting to Texas, playing some pro ball. Mm-hmm. And what Tyler's talking about is, and you take a Jordan who did have some natural gifts, but if you look back at his history, he got cut from his basketball team as a sophomore.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Those life lessons in learning to grind. Most guys, Tom Brady, just watched him last night, blah, 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 blah. All these guys, everybody thinks, they're just gifted. That's not true. Mm-mm. The guys who stay at the top, they figured out the formula for both. At some point, they probably weren't at the top, and once they got there, they didn't want to let go of it.
They work hard to stay there.
They grind even harder and get even more obsessed with it. That's what makes a superstar.
That's right.
It's not just because he was, Zeus shot him with a super talent ball. Happens sometimes. I mean, but, you see the quarterback and just flick it, but that guy's still not going to be any good unless he gets in the film room and studies. You can use any analogy you want. But I think that's such a great point. And then what you do is you carry that into life, whether you go into business or teaching or motivation, the stuff. Now you use that in life moving forward.
And I think that's huge, brother, because so right now in the athletic world we live in, because they've got NIL, right? You've got kids are exposed to a lot earlier. Mm-hmm. My whole thing is I pray that the work ethic does not get lost in the shuffle. Mm-hmm. Because it, Dave, like, you've seen some of the best athletes walk through those locker room doors, but you've also seen somebody who's got an amazing talent but won't work for a dime. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you look around in that locker room and you say, God dog it, if I had your arm, God dog, if I had your quickness, your quick twitch reflexes, ain't no telling what I could do. And it kind of makes you laugh to yourself, because then you look like, man, you've seen some great athletes. It's not necessarily the athlete. It is the work ethic, that underlying mindset, heart set towards the game, that is the real separation. Because if you play sports long enough, you will see some amazing God-given talent that will just leave you jaw-dropping. Yeah. But then you'll say, doggone it, I'm seeing the talent. Why don't that talent work like I work? And then that's the thing that keeps you going, because the way you work got you to where you are. So therefore, you're less likely to slump off and not approach the game and give it the best respect and love you can give it, because you've seen the other side of the coin, right? And so that's my only fear with what they're getting so quickly, guys. I'm all about it, but it's like, man, don't miss the work ethic in between, which is the real thing that you can control. That is the most priceless gift that you've ever been given, and it will separate you in life from anybody. Not just the sports part, but it will separate you in life from anybody. Mm-hmm. And guess what? David, Mike, is free. It don't cost you a dime to work.
That's right.
Don't cost you nothing.
That's right. Now,
Let me ask you that along those lines. Do you think that's an innate deal, and that's just the individual? He's born with that, or her, or they're born with that drive, or do you? And then you have some circumstances maybe where you have to become the overachiever, or do you think that's learned?
So I come from
both. Could it be both?
My first guess is the learn. But it can be both. I feel like you kind of got to go through and see some things in life that turns on a switch. I'll use dad as an example, right?
Point.
Because my if you talk to my dad's brothers and sisters, they will, number one, you'll note that my dad isn't the best athlete, hands down. Willie Campbell and Herbert Campbell were the biggest. They were the strongest. They came around at a time where everything was segregated, right? And then a father died very early, so they had to make some hard choices. My dad ain't the biggest one. Okay, so but what they do tell me about my father is that he was the laziest of us all as men and women in this family. I'm like, what? You got Earl? He was like, my dad never picked the roses. My dad would hide in the fields. My dad would sway his way out of pulling the cotton and doing, like, he was the laziest guy. Something happened in his life somewhere where a switch clicked that caused him to work and work profusely. And that moment, I believe, is when that hamstring tear happened that junior year, which is why people didn't know Earl Campbell. How did he end up winning the Heisman? Because I think up until that point, EC was kind of a bust as that number one player. He only had he was stuck in the wishbone as a fullback, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he worked with Frank Medina and he went from 240 to 225 and they switched to the I formation, the doors blew open. But my dad would say he helped build, Bass Concert Hall, for all the drywall, all the stuff that he would have to haul consistently after working with Frank Medina. That's when my dad's work ethic really clicked. And you saw a superstar and a monster as opposed to the guy who was that athletic guy and was balling off of talent. Then he had the heart set, because I didn't recognize that. But when my dad told me, he was like, yeah, everybody was surprised that I won the Heisman that year because it kind of snuck up on people. Yeah. My junior year was a catastrophe with torn hamstrings. Yeah. I hit the bench. I said, well, what changed? He said, I started working and believing in what I wanted. I got back to the root. I got back to the root as to what God gifted me with and what expectations he had over my life. I gave you this talent. Now you got to put some motion and some work and some oil and some grease behind it. And when you train that machine like Frank Medina trained him, that was when everything changed for Earl Campbell. And so that was, for me, it was like, you can learn how to separate yourself. Right. You can learn. So I guess maybe some people are intrinsically born with it, David. That might be for me, for me, in the way that I grew up, it was looked at me. I looked at it as I can learn how to do that. Like I can train my mind how to think like that. Right. How to outwork somebody.
I think you're selling yourself a little short, though, calling yourself an ugly duckling, because I know better than that. You have a lot of talent, And yes, that hard work let that talent come up pretty high. But I want to talk more about your dad, not to
not at all.
Not to ignore that. But I've talked to your dad for so many years, but I've told him in the past about how impressed I am about what a great father he is.
Yes.
And what a great mother you have in Renee. And the fact that I think that you and your brother are so respected in what you do, and in so many ways. Yes, I know y'all have worked so hard, but I think that so much of it is because of them.
Yeah.
And do you agree with that?
I want 1000%. I'm so proud of them. Number one, my dad didn't have his dad for very long.
Yeah.
And so now that I'm, a husband and a father, it's like I learned so much. I got prepared for you're never prepared to be a parent, but I had a leg up from some people who don't have anybody.
Right.
My dad actually took the time he gave us everything that he never got to have with his dad. Mm-hmm. Like the quality time, like going out to eat at Dirty Martin's Hamburgers, right? Like teaching us how to ride horses, like all of that stuff. He gave it to us, and he was kind of reliving childhood experiences that he never got to have. And as I got older, I thought that was the most beautiful thing. My mama, all business, no play, all 100%, because she had to keep all three boys in line. So she can't be no weak mama. And my mama was so stern. That's why, listen, we were talking about going over to the streets house. Nobody ever wanted to come spend the night at my house. Nobody, like my friends did not want to come spend it because my mama was all business. Okay. But also from a standpoint, I was raised in a world that they didn't know. Right. So their ability to ground us, teach us the importance of family, because we grew up in a suburban neighborhood. That's not how my mom and my dad grew up. So they walked blindly into a lot of circles that they were very unfamiliar with as parents. And so that's why the togetherness was so important, right? The church on the east side, making sure we always at Mount Olive across the street from Houston Tillerson, staying grounded in our faith and being together, because there weren't as many Black families in Westlake at that time. Right. And so the ability to love and those things, I saw so much, and I appreciate them because of the world that we were raised in and how different it was. I remember spending the night at friends' houses, and my mom she was like, "What did they eat?" What I had to remember that they never spent the night at another white person's house growing up in the time frame. It's not racism. It's just that at that time that wasn't what they grew up in.
Yeah, it's the way the world was.
So there was a lot of learning socially that they had to understand with me and Christian growing up in a society that they never did. Yeah. But if they didn't have that level of love, I don't think it would have been it would have been a far difficult task. But they never panicked. They kept us rooted. We always went back to East Texas. We always understood the core of where our family came from, and humility, and the value of saying yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, and thank you. My mother and my father told me that those things will take you further in life than you could have ever imagined. And so it's crazy because we grew up in a day and time where you would say yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, and like none of your friends would really say that. And so right away people's parents would be like blown away. But for us, it was like, well, that's my mama's not going to turn around if I don't say yes, ma'am. My dad's not going to finish his sentence if I don't say yes, sir, no, sir. So to the rest of the world, it was like, that's crazy, kids saying that. But for us, that's how we grew up. And it's something that you guys, as that generation, y'all would say the same doggone thing too. It was like the expectation, right? It's not really that big of a deal.
Oh, if I didn't say yes, ma'am, my mom wasn't going to turn around. She's just going to backhand me with the blindside black backhand. Bam! You're done right there. She didn't have to turn around. Bam!
Yeah. And so I have children now, and I have a rule book. I have a cheat code of life lessons that I'm able to instill in my children, and that's kind of because of my parents. And guess what, guys? We're so jacked up now. When my baby say yes, ma'am, yes, sir, now people are really just,
wow, what?
And it's like a good, bad thing. Good, bad
thing. The world needs more of that. Respect your elders and all. They really do. So,
wow,
that's pretty funny.
No, they're the key. They're the glue. They held it together.
They gave you the foundation.
Big time.
So again, I love the Campbell family. I've always been so impressed, and more impressed as I've gotten to know y'all through the years, and as y'all have gotten older and as you've had kids, and just so amazing. But how much was the Campbell family rocked when you were in college and you got diagnosed with MS?
Yeah, just a total blindside. My father's initial reaction, not understanding what the disease is, not knowing what it is, being away from your child, because I'm all the way out in California when I'm diagnosed, my family going to college, and my family is in California, so they can't put hands on me. They can't see the doctor's appointment. They can't see the spinal taps, the paralysis. So when I told my father, my dad thought it was something that I had inherited from him because he was dealing with congenital spinal stenosis at that time, like the diagnosis of what he was going through, and not knowing that you are at risk if your family members have it, so that could be passed down. And so he's like, is this something because of the spinal issues that I've had? Is this something that you got because of me? So your typical dad, he was like, he was trying to take on the brunt of what I was going through to find the answer through him and where he flawed. And I had to tell my dad, I said, no, it's nothing like that. And honestly, I told my father, I don't think I'm the first one in our family that has this in our history. I said, I'm probably just the first one that got diagnosed because my family comes from poverty. And so going to the doctor in those day and times, historically, you didn't do that. There weren't funds available for that. And culturally, you would say, oh, that person's just off, or their leg's not working. There's something's just wrong with that person. My mother knew what the disease was because she was a former nurse. And most people don't know that. So we got the cheat code in our family as far as somebody who knew about bumps and bruises and illnesses and diseases, because mama knew, even though she was an entrepreneur, she still kept taking her tests every year to stay licensed. Right. And so she knew what the disease was, and she could help dumb it down in a place that I could understand it. And also help ease dad, because dad was rocked. Dad was in tears. Mom's like, you got this. You know what I'm saying? You'll figure it. We'll collectively, we can figure this thing out. Because for me as a student, as an athlete, and D, this, you just like, what do I have to do to keep playing? Yeah. I'm 21 years old. I'm going into my last year of football. I'm a captain. Like, I'm not ready to stop playing. What do we have to do as a doctor training? What do we have to do so is it pills? What is it? Whatever that is, I'm doing it. And that's just an athlete. It's not blind. It's just you love a game and you're not ready for that game to die. And so that's kind of how I looked at my disease. I'm not saying that that's correct, but in doing so, that helped put my family's mind at ease, because it's like, okay, Tyler still wants to go to school. Tyler still wants to compete. Tyler still wants to just be a regular guy. And when my dad was able to see that and then kind of lay eyes on me after the Christmas break, that helped ease his worry. But in the beginning, if they were rocked, the person who showed it visibly was my father. But at the end of the day, we just equated it to athletics. Let's learn what to do and let's learn what not to do. And let's try to be smart. But if you are ready and you want to play this game, play the game.
For the viewers, Todd, go over what was that diagnosis?
Yeah.
What was the condition?
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Right. I woke up one morning after playing BYU, our last game of the season, my junior year, 2 months after my 21st birthday. And I fell asleep that night and woke up the next morning after the game, and I couldn't walk and I couldn't talk. So, if anybody wants to put yourselves in my shoes, like, we go to sleep every night. It's a blessing to wake up. We automatically assume that when we wake up, you'll be able to walk, you'll be able to talk. I woke up and I could do none of those things. So I was rushed to Scripps La Jolla Memorial Hospital because the training room did not know what to do. It wasn't a concussion. So, as an athlete, you go to the training room, you expect to get your answers at the training room. That's where it stops. We got doctors, we got trainers. They're going to give us a diagnosis right then and there, and we're going to work cohesively as a unit to move forward. My team doctor, he said, this isn't a concussion. They gave me all these tests of walking in a straight line and cognitive stuff and like touch your toes, and I failed miserably. And the look on his face is what gave me the fear, because he was like, oh, we got to find a neurologist. And I was like, oh, what? I know what that was. Yeah. He was like, yeah, you're going to need to go to the hospital. This is above my pay grade, is what he said. Wow. And so that's when I kind of was like, oh my, this is, because I didn't get the answer. I didn't get the stop. Everybody torn ACLs, broken ribs, ligaments, concussions. It stops after you get your answer. And they sent me off. I had to go get my answers by myself. It was so bad. I drove because I'm right hand dominant. All my lesions or the holes on my brain. With MS, you deal with paralysis, cognitive issues. It means that there are holes on your brain that prohibit or stop your brain from firing off the signals to the rest of your body. So when we raise our hand, I raise my left hand, I'm able to do so because the right side of my brain sends a message to the left side of my body to do it. Well, my body couldn't do that because I had holes on the other side of my brain, which affected my right side of the body, which is why I lost the functioning. I lost the speech. It felt like somebody grabbed a hold of my spine and kept shaking it. That's what living with MS for me was like. And having all these other issues. So, that's where MS hit me, and that's what I was forced to deal with as a 21-year-old scholarship football athlete at San Diego State University. That turned into my life.
And I wanted to dig in that specifically from the athletic on the human side, the athletic side, and you touched on it. You're sitting here, you're playing football, you're coming on your guy. I remember when this happened, I'm like, well, what? I mean, what even happens then?
Yeah.
What were there limitations put on by the disease you play? I mean, how could you still, you hear that story, he gets diagnosed with MS and plays his senior year. Well, how does that walk us through that?
Yeah.
Not only what you were going through mentally, you kind of did some of that, but how do you get through that? We talked about the grind and the process there. How do you overcome that mentally? Did the doctors, like I said, did they give you any limitations? They tell you not to play? What all went on there?
So I was an anomaly for my neurologist. When I saw her, I was an anomaly. She had never seen an athlete, a football player, like a real live hardcore athlete.
Right.
I was 6'4". I was playing fullback at that time, so around 230, 235, somewhere in there. And so I was in very good shape. And I told her, I was like, I'm not done playing the game. What do I got to do to keep playing the game? She said, as long as you don't have relapses with this disease, you can still play.
Wow.
And so I don't know if she meant to, but she gave me everything that I needed to hear as an athlete, because all we care about is when can I play? That's all I literally heard. I said, okay, no more relapses. I can play. So my right side doesn't function. I'm put on steroids. Then I'm given medications. I'm going through finals. I took all my finals left-handed. I'm right-hand dominant. So, written finals, I'm a business management major. So there weren't easy finals. I took all of my finals left-handed. I passed all of them. So there were little things in life that were coming my direction that told me that I can do this with MS. They told me it had never been done before. They were very clear about that.
Yeah.
But I was getting little signals about life from the Lord up above that, like, yo, you can do this. The sucky part about it is with the disease comes constant fatigue and the paralysis issues. Those I couldn't do anything about. My body was like its own. It did what it wanted to do. Okay. Like some days you would feel good. Some days you'd feel like hell. I was already cultured by this time because I went junior college, got to San Diego State. Like I had a grind to get to where I was. So I appreciated my experience at a Division I university probably more than most people at that age did. Okay. I was proud to be an Aztec. I was proud to bleed red and black. And so for me, it came back to work ethic that we talked about. By this time, I knew that I could outwork anybody on my football team. And if you did win that battle of outworking me, you were going to die I was going to die dragging me off the field. My coaches know that as a fullback and as a third string running back, I would still pull a tire behind my waist after every practice when everybody went in. My coaches would tell you. My offensive coordinator will tell you. I had literally, it never mattered about the result of what other people thought. I focused more so on, as a teammate, when you bring up Tyler Campbell's name, he works extremely hard and he respects everybody. That was literally about how I lived my life. Those are the two things that I cared about. And so those didn't need other people to validate. Like it was all of a heart set mindset for me. So I did 2-a-days on my own. My limbs didn't work. My strength coach will tell you I would work out with the team, then I work out in the evenings after the team in the summertime. I had to work that much harder so my fingers could go like this.
Wow.
Okay. Getting in a 3-point stance, in a game, in a scrimmage, And it literally feels like, again, somebody is shaking your spine became my normal expectation. I learned how to defeat that with my mind.
Wow.
But that was my life. Every single doggone time you walked, it was all right. Somebody, and then my right side doesn't work. But athletically, I feel like because of what God gave me, which is a little bit of what Dad had, I felt like he gave me a strength inwardly that just so happened to overcompensate or help these other sides of my weaknesses of my body to be able to do just enough to play the game. So my bench press numbers were never I would squat over 600 and something pounds and I could only bench press like 375. But it's because I had a weak arm. I power clean. I ended up power cleaning, what was it, 395 pounds? But I could only do, like, my numbers just didn't add up for maybe what a fullback was supposed to be. But I never told anybody. And I never told anybody because I didn't want them to, like, I don't know, judge me, coddle me. It was like with MS, I played my own mental game with myself. And I did battle with nobody else but Tyler. Yeah. I had my own expectations and I went to war with that. Only part of it was I was compromised emotionally. Because I carried around a huge weight of not opening up. I never talked to my coaches about my disease. I never did. Never. Like I never told, because I was on my own getting a diagnosis. It didn't include the coaching staff. It didn't include the trainers. I was on my own. So MS was mine. I didn't open up to, as long as I came back, showed up on time, did my work. Nobody had to say nothing. Oh, TC's good. I definitely didn't tell my teammates. I gave my needle injections of my disease in private in the locker room after everybody else had left. Wow. So I literally lived in silence. So TC is doing all these things exteriorly, but he's very much broken on the inside in my time at San Diego State. I'm an emotional wreck. I started to experience depression. But I was a team captain. It was my senior year. I love and respect this game. So I can't tell anybody about what I'm going through, or at least I thought. And that's the worst part. Everybody loves to talk about how you muscle through it and live with MS. And I tell people now, yeah, but if I had to do it all over again, I would tell people how broken, how depressed, how sad, how lonely, how much pain, how much hurt that I was going through. Because maybe I would have been able to handle my multiple sclerosis a little bit better, and maybe been just a better person, if you think that that's possible.
Did your teammates know?
No,
what you were going through? They did not know.
I had one teammate who I lived with. His name was Matt. He was a tight end, my buddy. I swore him to secrecy. So like people would come over to our house. And I would have all those, you know how you have those needles and you have to put them in a biohazard type deal whenever you're using medications and you drop them off at the clinic for safety. You can't just throw away these needles of medication that you're using. So when my teammates came, I would hide all my biohazard stuff. I'd hide all the I'd tell Matt, you can't tell anybody. And I just didn't want anybody. I was so scared that they were going to take away my scholarship, guys. Like I was so terrified. That's what I thought. I literally thought
the team didn't know either, like the coaches and wow.
I wrote all about it. I never, because here's the deal. As far as I'm concerned, you send me to Scripps Memorial. I go through finals, football season's over. I had gotten a hold of my disease. So when I came back in January for winter break, it was about training myself not to walk with a limp. It was about making sure I'm early, I'm on time, never late for nothing. My academics aren't falling apart. So when you look at Tyler Campbell, he looks just like everybody else. He went one way at the end of the season, but as the closure and everything else, he was fine. So I essentially had about a month to get my story together. A month and a half. And I got it together by the time everything came back, like for school to start.
Wow.
I had trained myself in a way to where I was not going to let you take something and allow it to be my Achilles heel. I felt like the more I opened up and talked about it, the more I would utilize it as an excuse. And that was false, but that's
the way you handle it.
That's the way I handle it.
Yeah.
Yep. Not telling anybody to do the same thing. I my offensive coordinator, my running backs coach, all these guys, if they knew it, we never had a sit down conversation about it.
Wow.
So if they knew, it was not told that to me.
That's just amazing. I would have thought at the clinic or when you went and saw the neurologist, she would have communicated that to the team doctors at San Diego State. That's an amazing story.
All she did was speak with Earl Campbell because they spoke the same language. Renee told Tyler what to do. Tyler got his MRIs on schedule. He came for his spinal taps. He did he ensured. I wasn't even given a physical therapy plan.
Wow. Wow.
Because I told her I got it. I said, I got access to a weight room. I'll figure it. I'm talking. And I walk into I have a right arm and a right leg that drags. It does not work. I have developed drop foot. Wow. That's how bad it was. And so not because of me, I feel like by the grace of the good Lord, and he knew what he needed me to do. Nobody had ever played. I was the first person to ever play Division I college football with MS. Yeah. So what I was doing, I didn't understand it, but the Lord needed me to do it so he could show other people that things are possible so that they can impact the world on a greater scale with what they do. I didn't recognize then, but I totally get it now. Because I look back on it and I'm like, I don't know how I did that. And now with MS, I wouldn't even volunteer to do it. That's how hard it was.
Yeah.
I wouldn't volunteer to do it.
And you played through your whole senior year and you're the only one who knew. You and the tight end.
Me and Matt. Who knew? My wife, the young lady, Shayna, who is my wife now, my wife was a track and field athlete at San Diego State. Okay. And I told her, I said, I have holes on my brain, but I'm gonna be okay. And she was like, what? I was like, yeah, I got holes on my brain, left side of my brain. I got holes over there, but it's okay. Like, so I was literally, I didn't understand the magnitude, guys. And I didn't get it. And I don't think I would have done what I did if I truly understood how bad of shape my body was in.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't.
Story. Incredible.
And yet you say you were basically such an emotional wreck in so many ways. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's especially at that age. That's the type of thing where you could easily go the wrong way, and the rest of your life is not good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
How did you keep it straight? I know besides just your family, I know your family supporting you, but there has to be other things that kept you on that.
You're absolutely right. We had we had Bible study groups on our football team, and so it literally became me and my faith. And I know not knocking anybody else's faith. I can just speak on my journey. I had to cling to something that was higher than man. Yeah. Because if you look at it on surface, what I was doing was absolutely crazy. It was absolutely nuts. I play fullback. Like I bang heads every play. Like that's what I do. I put my spine at risk every time I stick my hand in the dirt. It is 24 ISO, 34 ISO. When I come in the game, it is pass protection. If Tyler's coming in the game, he's not getting the ball. He's blocking. He's the extra man back there to help, right? So I'm contact every play. It's not as glorious as the running back position. All right. And so I had to cling. I read the book of Proverbs. It got almost to the point where I could memorize so many of the books. I learned that a guy by the name of Solomon was supposedly at that time one of the wisest people who ever lived. And so I clung to his book because my body was broken, so I needed my mind to be strengthened in a place that was bigger than I could provide. And so I needed wisdom as to how I walk blindly. It was like taking the first steps even when I couldn't see the staircase. That's what my life was like, because I didn't understand what I was going through. And so spiritually, that's where I got my strength. And some days, guys, there were days when I forgot I had MS. And there were some days where I was quickly reminded of what I had. But I had to cling to something. And honestly, I couldn't tell my mom and my dad They're back in Texas. My dad would be a nervous wreck and break down if he knew I was in so much pain. If he probably would have said, don't play ball if I told him about how my spine felt. If I told him about how some days in practice, man, I'm telling my leg to move, but it's not picking up and putting down like it's supposed to. Yeah. My family would have told me probably no more ball. So it's like I wanted this so bad, but here's the deep reason why. Guys, I was blessed to come from a 2-parent household. I played college ball with cats who were from inner city LA, inner city New Orleans, tough parts of Florida. They never had their dad growing up. They're the first persons to go to college. I'm a captain. If you didn't know anything about TC, and my teammates will tell you, like for Tyler, he's that dude that the guys who are struggling with, the coaches made sure that I was put around that person to get that person to meetings, to get that person to team dinners, to like that was my role from a leadership standpoint. So it was like, I got to get this right, because if I don't, I got cats on the team who won't go to class and they won't break the generational curse that they're supposed to break. Because I saw what Earl Campbell did. Earl Campbell went to college because he was the first person in our family to go to college. Guess what? As cousins, we were raised that college is a possibility. My dad told me nobody ever talked about college growing up. My mom was a first generation college student on her side. So it's like I looked at the men in the locker room and I understood, because of what I had seen, that if I give up out of nowhere, out of the blue, if I don't fight life out of the blue, but I've been telling everybody, you got to fight, you got to do this, we got to be on time, we got to, because it'll carry over in life. How can I quit, doggone it? And if I'm not there to help my brothers get there on time, then they're not going to break the curse. That means that their little brothers, their little sisters, their cousins, those unborn children, those stories are being told about what Lance could do, what Atia could do, what Jerry did. They won't be able to tell that story, so that somebody else in their family could take the bar so much further. So I look back on Dad. I saw what it did to my family, and it's like, bro, you can't quit. Like you can't, not only for yourself, but think about what your brothers may be missing out on or may fall through the cracks on. And that is where generational curses will continue to keep happening. Yeah. So it became way bigger to me than the game I played with myself mentally was way bigger than football. And it became about my brothers on the team who I genuinely love, even though they didn't see the magnitude or the impact that they were making by becoming a Division I student athlete. But I did, because I saw what it did for my family.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
You go through all of that, battling the MS, being that first ever D1 athlete to play football with MS. You've done so much for your team, so much for your teammates. You've kept your family so strong during this tough process for you. So many great things that you've done, and it could be a great best-selling book, and you could give motivational speeches, but instead you leave college and you work for the family sausage company.
yeah, baby. See, David, it came back. Doggone it. Dog it. Listen, man, yeah, go ahead, Mike. See how it all comes back? This sausage stuff is following me. There's no telling what I could have done if we did Campbell's soup.
Why did it not? And what I just said you're doing now with the great book and the motivational speeches, but why did it not happen then? And what was the delay?
So, number one, I hadn't there, that year and a half of my life. Well, just the road to travel to get to get to junior college, San Diego State, a lot of stuff was about head down, do this, do that. I never gave myself time. So I think by the time I finished school, like I didn't really know me in all confidence the way that I felt like I should, right? To be able to is one, like a lot of people get on stage and they like tell stories, but a lot of people will tell stories, but if you hear the story, that doesn't necessarily mean that they've gone through and walked their story with their parents. Yeah. Walk that story with their family members and friends. They tell stories because it's theirs. I hadn't always gotten to the point of being able to like share the stories of what I went through with other people. I feel like Sometimes people say things. We live in a social media world where you just tweet things, you just IG things. You don't think about how your stories were impacted in the lives of other people who are also a part of your story. So Tyler hadn't had a bunch of sit downs with mom and dad. Tyler hadn't had conversations with Christian friends about like what was going, because I was so introverted. I was introverted, extrovert, because I'm a Campbell. So you're forced to be extroverted by nature, but I'm introverted. That's who I am. So there was a lot of back work that I needed to do on Tyler that I had not yet done. So for me, it was like you get through college, yo, you get a job. like you get a job. You need to work. You need to make your own money. I had to first rehabilitate myself, physical therapy wise, because when I came back to Austin, I was broken. I was in a wheelchair from MS, right? My body had said enough is enough.
So stop. So you play your senior year.
Yeah.
You're not in a wheelchair, obviously. This is an incredible story.
Yeah.
I mean, really. And did you graduate at midterm or did you go the spring?
I graduated early. Because to show you, like I graduated the year, like the spring before the football season, because I thought if I graduated early, I could just play football and not go to class.
There you go. But you got to take a graduate class.
Yeah. Oh, it screwed me up.
Yeah.
Oh.
But hold on. Let's stay with the timeline here. So you played that fall semester, football season, so probably November, December.
Yeah.
You come home, you're in a wheelchair.
Well, I had actually, and I went through the pro day, right? I went through a pro day and I actually competed and did my pro day. And then the week after my pro day, I relapsed. And I tried to keep training in the midst of my relapse. It didn't work out. Then I eventually went through a relapse that put me in a wheelchair. And that's when the doctor said, remember what we said. And so for me, it was about coming back to Texas. They had a great neurologist back in Round Rock, Dr. Edward Fox, still my neurologist to this day. All signs were pointing towards going home. So my dad did physical therapy with me. And I worked my way out of a wheelchair to being able to walk with a limp, to being able to, be upright enough to work. And I told my dad, I said, I saw how hard you worked. And so I want to keep this thing going, for a black man and you came from nothing. You built an entrepreneurial, you got into this business of sausage and you built it when people laughed in your face for starting it. When you put down $1 million of your own money to start this business because you invested yourself wisely in the NFL, people laughed at you. And told you it would never amount to anything. And so when I got out of college, at that time, it was the number 13th ranked sausage company in the nation. And so I saw what happens when you work, and I just wanted to be along with that. So I started in the sausage business, and that further enhanced my speaking, honestly, guys, because it was like, how quickly can you sell sausage in 2 minutes? If you're sitting at a grocery chain like Publix in Florida, like what? Give me 2 minutes as to why I should put your sausage in the facing. I've already got Jimmy Dean. I've already got Johnsonville. I've already got Eckridge, Hillshire Farm, these other big national monsters. And so it allowed me to think of things cerebrally. I would take relationships. I look at people's family pictures behind their desk. I would learn to ask the right questions. I would learn to do anything and everything, how to create a friendship. And I think that was what's so special about my father, my grandmother, is they could make genuine friendships. And I remembered that one of the greatest gifts I was ever given for my family is the ability to conversate with people, to treat people like people. And I started putting sausages in out of state. I fell in love with selling sausage, getting on an airplane, being young, going to these corporate offices, going to Kroger, going to all these North Carolina, Winn-Dixie's of the world, all these other chains. Dad had conquered in the South. I was split out. I was going everywhere else. Mm-hmm. And so that actually enhanced my speaking even better without me even knowing it. So when I got put to the trajectory of speaking, I was kind of comfortable a little bit because I've been doing these selling sausage speeches like clockwork. It got to the point where I would go in without notes. It got to the point where I would go in without presentations. I just go in with product and I would just have a conversation about somebody and their family and what they love. And then at the very end of it, I would just say, hey, we also got these sausages over here. Oh man, Tyler, I forgot what you was even here for, Tyler. Yeah. We'll give that a chance. I'll tell you what, we'll give that a chance. And then if it doesn't work out, keep my number. Because you're a great it was just fun. I learned how to just talk to people, which is what our generation now is really struggling with, is just talking to people. And those things were preparing me as a speaker. Yeah, because it's all that. And so I learned how to convert the introverted person, learn how to like talk to people. And that's
I'm not buying that. We talked about nature and nurture. You got some natural people skills.
No, but there's a difference between like conversating with people conversating with total strangers, and then getting on stage and speaking before 700 to 1,000 people that you don't even know. There's a difference.
There's a difference there.
Yeah, there's a difference there. That wasn't a part of what I thought. So sausage selling, I really enjoyed it. Like really and truly loved it. Really loved it.
Yeah. And you were good at it.
Yeah, it was fun. You get to like, I was scoring touchdowns without getting hit. It's pretty cool. It's like, yeah, that's the best way I can say it. It's like you're scoring touchdowns and you're not getting hit, so you can have fun with it. You know what I mean?
And then I love how you've said that, not to bring up COVID and get into all that mess, but the fact that COVID caused you to write to your kids.
Yeah.
And just share something with them that turned into an incredible book.
Yeah, and that's what I meant, right? Because I got here and these things are happening, like good things are happening, but there's a big part of Tyler that Tyler didn't take care of. There's and the more successful you become, those hidden chinks in your armor, you feel like you don't have to address them because you're having success in other avenues. When you start having children, and you see how sometimes they handle problems, and you're like, dang, I used to say stuff like that. God dog it, that's me. Like I have a son, my son's name is Messiah, and sometimes I see him, and it's like I can't even get mad at him sometimes for the way he react, because it's like I did that same, and it's like, so I had to readdress some of the things that were wrong about Tyler. I had to readdress where Tyler had made mistakes in his life. And it is hard to look at the person you see in the mirror every day and say, man, there's some unspoken things in my life that I have not addressed. And I've been able to fake the funk for this long. But there's a part of Tyler that hasn't. And you got to take care of those things, Tyler, because you have 3 kids. You have a wife, an amazing wife. And so I got to the point where I wasn't giving my family all of me. And that would start waking me up out of my sleep, because I wasn't authentic with my messaging towards them. Like, yeah, Dad, you telling me to do some of this stuff, but honestly, Tyler, you haven't addressed some of those same wounds from your past when you didn't address those things. But now you're telling your kids and your wife to do those things. That's not adding up. And so that's when I started going to counseling. That's when I started learning how to cry. I had never really cried before. You would think like with MS and with all this other stuff, I never cried. I didn't want that. I didn't know how. I suppressed all that. Like that's some major news in somebody's life. I didn't allow emotions to surface. I ran from those things. And so it got to those standpoints. My children I'd never seen my dad cry. So as a man, I didn't know it was okay to cry sometimes. So I was passing that on to my children, my wife. So I went through therapy for that full year, and out of my experiences of addressing my mother and my father, telling them I'm sorry for things in my life that I did wrong, telling cousins, family members, telling people, hey, when you did those things to me at this time, I know you don't realize it, but man, that really hurt me. It hurt our relationship. I just want you to know that. Having like real tough conversations, which is difficult than or different than working your body, doing the weights, doing the grind aerobically, all those things. I had never done anything mentally and had tough emotional conversations. And so what happened out of that is it birthed a book, because now I was on stage, I was on Zoom, I was opening up about stories because I could. because I addressed those stories first and foremost with family members and friends. So it wasn't a secret to anybody. I felt free in my messages. And therefore, when it came to writing, it flew. There were moments in my life where I knew I was supposed to write a book, but I couldn't. And the reason I couldn't is because I hadn't taken care of wounds in Tyler's past and addressed people so I could move into a better future. And so once I did that, I trust me, Mike, to be an Amazon bestseller, that's not what I envisioned. I wrote the book for myself.
Yeah.
I really and truly wrote the book for me. It just so happened like I was freeing Tyler. And as a result of freeing Tyler, it opened up all these other opportunities. But that wasn't it. It was writing something. So if I die tomorrow, my kids will find and know everything they wanted to know about their dad. Like a photograph can only tell you so much. We see photographs of people who lived before us, and we always think like, man, I wonder what my mama was thinking when she was holding me at that time, or what my dad, why he was smiling so hard, why my aunt. Now I put words on paper so my babies don't ever have to wonder what their dad was thinking, what he was feeling, what he was scared of, what he loved, what he thought about us. They can pull it in a book for the rest of their life, and they can pass it down to their children, and they will always know what their dad was thinking or what he felt. And so for me, I'm good. If the good Lord takes me tomorrow, I tell my wife all the time, I know I have left you and my children enough to always know who your father is. Because my dad always told me he wished he knew more about his father.
Yeah.
And he didn't get a chance to have anything left behind for him to know him.
Yeah.
He never did.
Wow. What a great gift.
Yeah. It was a blessing.
Yeah. Really
I take no credit for it. None. So that's a blessing. That was a divine thing. Because I wrote that for me. That was it. Nobody else.
Too much modesty.
Hey, that's probably the parts of Earl Campbell that majority of people know and remember for.
Yeah.
That's what I have.
That's true. Y'all are so similar in so many ways, though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wish I had some more of that strength, though. God, dog, or some of those thighs. Jeez.
I'll date myself again. I always date myself. I remember when you and your brothers would come to baseball play. You might not even remember that. I mean, you guys were small.
Coach Gus?
Yeah. You guys, so back then we were in the third base dugout. We'd have these, 17-hour inter squad games or whatever. And there'd be Earl and all you boys just sitting in the dugout and going, you guys be drinking Powerade. We're out there in the heat on the turf. It was great, though. It was great. And another thing, you'd be going, man, that's Earl Campbell. That's unbelievable. But you guys be running around the ballpark. I remember those days. It was cool.
Hey, man. And so I know James was good about it. I know Dad was good about it. Taking the kids wherever you went.
Oh,
like, just take them. Just take them so they can see, they can know, they can be. And like I said, he never got to go anywhere with his dad. So I'm going to take the kids with me. I'm so sure me and my brother embarrassed him in so many doggone meetings. From jumping up and down, from being loud, but he didn't care. It was like, my kids are coming. If my kids can't come, I'm not coming. I'm not coming. So we went everywhere, man. He took us everywhere.
First time I ever met Tyler Campbell. 1993. The station does a little thing called Beat the Pro. And we talked to Earl, and Earl meets us at Butler Pitch and Putt. And he's got his young son, Tyler Campbell, with him.
I'll probably take it over to the right and hook it in there.
Your son Tyler is your caddy. What club are you going to use here today?
I'm going to probably hit a pitching wedge or a 9-iron. Probably a pitching wedge. So, Tyler, why don't you hold a 9-iron?
Either way, you're going to have to kind of take it easy because you don't want to fly this green.
Well,
And Tyler comes out, and we put Tyler on TV. And the funniest thing about that is it's a little thing to where you get a celebrity and they hit a par 3 shot, and how close are they? And you try to beat the pro and be better than them. Well, my photographer Kenny Kaplan at the time, he's getting a shot of Earl addressing the ball, and then he's going to go down to the green and get him hitting it. Well, Earl addresses the ball, takes a shot, and actually hits the ball. It ends up 2 inches from the cup. 2 inches from the cup, and we don't have a shot because we just have the camera isolated on Earl.
Oh man, Mike.
So it was that. Wow, I didn't know you were such a great golfer, Earl. Hold on, let's do that again. Send Kenny down there to the green. Earl hits about 25 more shots, doesn't even come close.
Yeah.
It was the worst. Video-wise, it was the worst beat the pro of all time. But it was hilarious. And you don't remember it because you were probably about 7 years old, and you were right there. And that was when I first met.
Oh man, and that warms my heart because Mike, there was a time when Dad, like, I don't know if he was ever really great at golf, but I know it's his favorite sport. It is his favorite sport.
Does he watch it a lot?
Oh, he watches the women.
I watch it all.
He watches the amateurs. He watches the college. He watches whatever he can watch for golf. He loves it. And I wish, that's my only biggest hurt that hurts me as a son is because I know, when all the back stuff started happening, I mean, the doc was like, you're not going to be able to swing it anymore. But I know that was the thing, him hitting it with Coach Royal and going to Barton Creek when all that stuff was new. That was Dad's. That was his escape. That was his that competitive thing that stayed with him after football. It was. And man, that's one piece, man, Mike, that warms my heart because that's a golf story. And I know you're telling the truth, man. And I know because he would tell me, he would say, son, you just live for that. Because I say, Dad, why you always going golfing? He said, son, when you just hit that one shot.
Makes you
so I guess, and I guess what Mike is telling me, that one shot happens every century for him. So once
you're dogging him, he birdied the hole. I mean,
oh my goodness. Great memories.
That's good stuff.
Oh, Tyler, tell us where we can find your book.
Yeah, it's everything's on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon, type in, The Ball Came Out, Life from the Other Side of the Field. It's over my shoulder. I was blessed to be on an Amazon bestseller for 15 weeks straight.
That's great.
So they sent me that little thing you see in the background. That was really, really cool. If you're in Austin, it's at Book People, as well as Sue Patrick at the Sue Patrick store down there. But if you go to Amazon, it's there. And I also did the Audible version of it too. People with multiple sclerosis have deficiencies, which makes book holding a tough thing. So I did the Audible, and my dad was nice enough to do, who was the forward of my book. He actually did the Audible version.
Oh, how nice.
And so that was really cool of him to do. He was singing country music in there. And so that was, I guess, his closest to being on an album and having a studio experience for himself, which was pretty funny because he's singing Silver Wings in there. But no, it was just a really cool experience. And so it's available on Audible as well, but Amazon.
That's great. You have so many great stories. You're such a wonderful person to listen to. You also have a radio show, so make sure people know about your radio show in case they ever want to listen to that.
Yep. Yeah, 104.9 The Horn. I'm the only show on The Horn every Saturday from 12 to 1 that doesn't talk about sports necessarily. But hey, it's the number one show on Saturdays, and I've been doing radio for 2 years, and it's really, really cool. So if you ever get a chance to tune in, or you can download old episodes off of SoundCloud, but it's just inspirational messaging for about an hour, and get you on your way to the football, rest of your Saturday football.
That's right. You can tell from listening to Tyler Campbell, he is good at everything he does. Tyler, we really appreciate you being in the box seats with us today. Thanks so much.
Hey, love you guys. Love you, Mike. And we got Coach Lowery. I'm calling him Coach Lowery.
Lowery, yeah. Just combine the two. There we go.
That's right.